Hello, my name is Mitch, and I draw Blood Force. And today we're going to take a look at 1992's Shadowhawk #1, which is the launch title for Jim Valentino for Image Comics. So, if you're not familiar with Jim Valentino, I suppose that's understandable. Jim Valentino hasn't done a whole lot of actual comics in the last, I don't know, 15 years, I guess. But Jim Valentino started out in the indie comics scene in the mid or late 70s, putting out his own stuff there first, and then in the mid 80s, publishing under Dave Sims' imprint when he tried, well, really when his wife tried being a publisher for a little while. And that was Normal Man, which went for 12 issues and an annual, and I think was fairly well known among the indie circuit. And from there, he signs on with Marvel and does a bunch of hopping about, does a bunch of what if issues, and a couple of Silver Surfers, a little bit here and there basically, and eventually in 1989, well, what happens apparently is Tom DeFalco, who was the editor-in-chief at the time, has an idea to bring back the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a nothing group from the late 60s. You wouldn't have heard of them. And late 60s, they didn't even have their own title. They starred in like a Marvel premiere or Marvel something, Marvel fanfare, some kind of thing like that. For like 6 issues, got canceled, and did guest stars, and then just kind of went away. But in 1989, Star Trek The Next Generation was coming out, and Tom DeFalco apparently thought he could cash in with a Guardians of the Galaxy idea. But he didn't like his own idea, so he didn't do anything with it. And then apparently at the same time, Jim Valentino had the Guardians of the Galaxy idea, and he approaches Tom DeFalco, and Tom DeFalco goes, "That's a much better idea." I don't even know what the idea was. I never read Guardians of the Galaxy. But it becomes like a minor success from what I can tell. Jim Valentino's on there for 29 issues. He plotted up to issue 50 apparently. And it's kind of like fun adventure stuff, which was, I believe, consciously in contrast to the edgy stuff that was becoming popular in the late 80s, early 90s, which is a little bit ironic given the subject matter of what we're going to talk about today. But anyway. So, yeah, he makes his way to Marvel. Somewhere in the middle there, he befriends Rob Liefeld, which is important. Because when Rob and their mutual buddy Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, etc., all decide they've had enough of Marvel, Jim Valentino comes along. And I think probably, I'm guessing somewhere along the line, Rob said, "Hey, Jim knows a bit about being an independent publisher. We should take him with us." Because I don't think they were bringing him for name value. I mean, I guess Guardians was a success. I don't remember hearing about it at the time. And this isn't the art style. We can be a little charitable and say it doesn't really mesh with the Image look at the time. And if you ask me, they were fully aware of that because they went kind of all out on the cover here. It looks like I actually beat this copy to shit, unfortunately. But, so issue 1 gets the embossed and the silver foil treatment. And you get inked by Liefeld. You probably can't tell. It took me a while to notice, actually. There's an embossed signature from Valentino and Liefeld. And you go, well, sure, it was a #1 in the early 90s. No other Image #1 got this treatment. You know, not Wildcats, not Spawn, none of them. Maybe some of the Brigade, like lower ones, when they felt like they needed a push. It seems that's when they went all out with the foil, which is a little bit funny. You know what else is funny? I mean, like this cover looks kind of badass, really. Except the eyes are kind of crooked. Like if you look at it, like that should be the line there. Right around there. That's not even close. Like, your boys are going to go out and back you that hard, and you can't even, like, make sure that shit's even, you know? I don't know. So yeah, who is Shadowhawk? The big theme on this one is that it's a mystery who our protagonist is. And you look at the credits on this. Like, this does not, like, right away you can see this is not the same kind of flashy presentation as some of his co-workers. Like, you look at Spawn #1, Wildcats, even Youngblood, and it looks a little bit slapped together, but those all look like top of the line mostly. This one, not so much, and you look in here and you see why. So created, written, and illustrated by Jim Valentino. I think that's problem one. Created, written, and penciled by Jim Valentino, I think would have been fine. Maybe. I don't know what Jim Valentino looks like inked by somebody else. The fact that he inked himself, his stuff looks like shit when he inks himself. I'll say that much. Letters, Diane Valentino, which I'm guessing is his wife. And you look in here, and these letters do not look up to professional standard quite. Like, pretty close, like 95, 98% of the way there. But not quite all the way. And the colors by Digital Chameleon, who also did the colors for Youngblood #1, if I remember correctly. I remember hearing the name Digital Chameleon, and so I think I've previously assumed that they knew what they were doing, but not based on this. This looks like it's like, I don't know, this is like standard Malibu shit. Maybe it's the slightly higher grade paper. Because, as I've previously said, the higher grade, like the almost cardstock, mixed with the coloring, tends to look like neon puke. But no, this coloring, it looks like ass. This is the awkward, formative stage in between the old school Marvel DC four color, 3 color method. I'm not even sure. And computer color separations. Like you can see here, this isn't the 4 color stuff. This is very, very early days of computer separations, and they don't really 100% know what they're doing, which is funny because the Spawn one, I think that's Ollie Optics. I don't remember offhand. They sure as shit did. They weren't handing out no pointers though to Valentino, I guess. And yeah, so this is back in the day when this was still being published by Malibu. And it looks like a Malibu book. It looks like a Malibu book that's had a whole ton of money pumped into it. Anyway. So out the gate, we get a dude in, you know, it's Shadowhawk. He's pushing a buggy around. And wearing a trench coat and everything so that he can lure in muggers. I'd love to see him prepping for this. Where he's just like loading stuff into garbage bags. Loading the garbage bags into the buggy. Getting his trench coat out. Is it dirty enough? Oh, I don't know. This might not be dirty enough to... They might be able to see through this. If it looks a little too clean. And... just so he can beat the shit out of muggers and break their spines. Because that's the deal with Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk breaks motherfuckers' spines. And this was the other gimmick here was, since we didn't know who Shadowhawk was, I guess Jim didn't want to say he, because it could very well be a woman. I don't know. That build doesn't look particularly womanly. but whatever. But it is kind of awkward again, which is you are Shadowhawk and you are taking up back the night. I just ripped it again. I don't know. And Shadowhawk doesn't have any mercy because there was 3 guys here. One of them goes, "Please don't hurt me, man," and runs away. I don't think he's even touched him yet. So he snaps this dude's spine. And then this guy says 3 young males with their spines broken. So he chased that other dude down and broke his goddamn spine for nothing. That's a little brutal. So the cops show up and they give us all the information we need to know, which is some dude goes around breaking dudes' spines for threatening people. Which is a harsh justice, I gotta say. Like, that's like, you know, if they're murdering people and you don't want to be a murderer, like you don't want to sink to that level, okay, I can see breaking some spines. But for not even like attempted murder, like they didn't even get there. He reaches out to the guy and then wham, back fist in the face. Like if you just wanted to beat some dudes up for being assholes, I'm on board. But I don't know, breaking dudes' spines for being an asshole, that's a little... What the shit is going on with this lettering? PD backwards RU? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, that's just weirding me out now. And this is how they number the pages with some slightly flowery script instead of just a number in the corner, which is again just kind of a weird touch that almost doesn't really seem professional. Like, you know, it's like, you know, that might seem like nitpicking, but it is kind of eye-catching later on, where you're just like, what are you doing? Why would you do it that way? And we get the title, A Nightmare Walking. But instead of saying you are, ... a nightmare walking, he says, you are a nightmare walking. So it sounds like he's stuttering. And someone is torching the place up in Harlem. That's the next thing. That's all there is. This guy and his partner are assigned to the Shadowhawk case. But his partner's always late because of his drinking problem. So we're supposed to think that his partner is Shadowhawk. So then we cut to Harlem, and Arson is here with his shitty coloring to burn the place down. And here we get other possible Shadowhawks. It's that one. Mr. Paul Johnstone, the one that they went out of their way to say his full name and say that he used to be a DA and make him look all determined and shit. So he like ran off the rooftop so he could stand outside this building burning down and go, man, that's fucked up. And he's still talking to this guy here. And in the back, they kind of intimate, oh, maybe it's this guy, the crackhead. I think they specifically say he's a crackhead. It's like, no, it's the guy he's talking to. And this is a little bit of... I remember this being kind of a big deal. It's like, oh, they're a shared universe. And then they kind of went out of their way to kind of refute that later on. And then we got another just random bunch of punks on street corners. Did they say how many dudes have had their backs broken? Let's see here. They don't, I don't think. Okay. But this has been going on for a little while, and dudes are just kind of randomly still hanging out in corners, being assholes to old ladies. I mean, maybe they kind of deserve it, really, when you get to that. Old lady assaults dude. Dude threatens her. Does he get his back broken? Not right away. He gets kicked in the face. Some other guy gets punched in the face. She gets told to run. I guess it's important. So again, this was... Ran along the rooftops as Shadowhawk. Stopped in front of the building that was getting burned down. Turned back into Shadowhawk so that he could back the old lady up. And do like fucking flips and shit. I don't even know if he's hitting anybody there. And then some guy takes a shot at him. And before he can even pull the trigger, he's been knocked out and his gun is falling and shooting. I don't even know. Sorry, there's not enough differentiation between these two guys here. And this feels like this was supposed to be the big badass shot, but it's Jim Valentino inking himself. And it kind of looks like ass. And the coloring looks like ass. And we see way too much of this guy's belly hair. It's not badass. I'm sorry. And so he kicks another guy in the face. Cops show up. He doesn't like to fight cops, unless of course he has no other choice. See, like here's the stuff here. This is just distracting. Oh, what does the shirt say? Does it say anything? Looks like poetic hustle. Justice? Probably more like poetic justice. That would make more sense. And lady reporter is being told to back off the case by her editor. And she's like, no, we got principles. And he's like, no, fuck your principles. I like money. And she's like, that's low. And he's like, oh, it is low. And then we get the rich lady who's hiring arson and his shitty coloring to burn the city down, so that she can... What's the deal for that? The city burns and she collects the indemnity and, of course, the contract to rebuild. So she collects the insurance on the buildings burning to the ground, so she owns the buildings. And she also owns the contracting company to rebuild. That seems a bit conflict of interest-y. Like, how much of this place do you own? Why do you even bother with the burning the shit down? Just like, it sounds like you pretty much run the town. Anyway. Man, I wanted a copy of this so bad. What did they even say it was? That's a good question. By removing all 7 coupons and by following all the rules below, you will receive a copy of Image Comics number 0. This very special limited edition comic will include exclusive stories by Eric Larson, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Mark Silvestri, and Jim Valentino. That sounds like horseshit. So, Image number 0. Let me see here. Released 1993. This, as we said, was August 1992. And I believe it was released in the summer. Or maybe even in towards the end of the year. So that had a troll story. Written and penciled by Rob Liefeld. So that's something. Then it had Deadly Tidings, written by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, and penciled by Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams, and a couple of nobodies. There was a Savage Dragon story by Eric Larson, of course. Striker story by Mark Silvestri, and Prey by Jim Valentino. I don't see anything in there by Todd McFarlane. They did say Todd, right? Yeah, they did. Yeah. I mean, he does contribute to the cover there, so that's something. But, yeah, that must have been disappointing as shit. If you collect all of these coupons, there's like 7 coupons from Cyberforce, Shadowhawk, Number 1, Youngblood 0, Wildcats 2, Brigade 2, Dragon 3, Spawn 4. You send all that shit in after spending like, I don't know, 30, 40 bucks. And a year later, you get back a troll story. Man, that's crap. That's a whole bunch of crap. Okay, so back to this shit. So this lady, who seems to have very confused agendas, is in cahoots with our poorly colored arsonist. And Jim Valentino seems to be kind of going all out with his page design, at least on this one. We got an interesting Dutch angle here, and this thing here, which might have worked if not for this corner, because now it just looks like she's like a weird severed bust. And he also had all of this going on. Like, he's trying to make it look interesting. The problem is his style doesn't really work with interesting. And now we're back to, wow, that's a hell of a layout, looking at it in more detail. So, I'll make sure this is all in. Yeah, it looks like it's all in there. So Shadowhawk is now facing off against the police, and he throws his little boomerangy shuriken thingy and catches it. And that, man, you know what? That doesn't read too poorly. It's just, holy shit, is that convoluted. There's got to be a simpler way to do that. Again, I guess he was trying to be fancy pants. And this always bothered me. How he catches the thing, and it says metal upon metal. So this thing is metal, and his glove is metal. We see no hinges. We kind of see hinges up here. Not here, not here. He's being a little lazy with that. Do we see more of... We don't really see his hands too often. It could be I was a little harsh on him. I don't know. I mean, most of the time he deserves it, because this comic kind of sucks. See, the problem is, on that specific panel, there's no hinges or nothing. It's just he's got a metal hand that bends, Silver Surfer style. And that's stupid. Another nice, you know, this panel design is nice. If it was anybody else drawing it, this might look pretty good. And these colors are so fucking stupid. The police just show up from their gay pride parade. And Shadowhawk escapes, and immediately that guy's partner shows up like, whoa, what's the deal, yo? And he's like, where you been? And he's like, personal business. Personal business? He likes his quotation marks. They'll show up fairly often. And he's like, yeah, as in quotation marks. None of yours, Reeves. What do you got here? This is some of the worst fucking dialogue, too. Okay. And yeah, he likes this deal here, this treatment. Okay, I think what's going on here is this is supposed to be the Shadowhawk uniform that's been packed away, and we're supposed to think he leapt up on the roof after jumping through a window. Circle the building, man. He won't escape this time. You men go around that way, and he shows up immediately. I guess we can do a UFO time slip for, you know, it doesn't matter that much. I gotta say, the perspective on these buildings, though, isn't exactly great, but... So he's not doing vanishing points, I guess. He's just making that shit up. He's just making this up, too, but it looks alright. Those are some very random scratchy things, but they do kind of look like a city skyline. So that's not too bad. And this is a whole bunch of wasted space, but again, it does read fairly well. So, like, as a storyteller, Valentino isn't terrible. None of this stuff is super awkward. Yeah. And, like, this is a nicely constructed shot with the moon directly behind him and all that stuff. And then you get your big double-page spread, if we cared. Ugh, if you're going to draw a foot that big, man, you might want to, like, spend some time learning how to do it. That looks pretty shitty. And then an ad for Infinity, which looks better than anything in previous to it. I checked, this never did come out. There are a few Image titles like that. The others, this is more Valentino. I don't think this ever came out. I should check that real quick. You know what? It actually did. Issues 1 to 3 and number 0. Scripted by Jim Valentino and somebody else, and then drawn by somebody else. It looks an awful lot like he's just kind of doing some more Guardians of the Galaxy, eh? But hey, follow through with it. I don't know if this coloring is worse or better than what was in the book. And classic Pitt ad. You like drawing Pitt naked? Well, I guess he's supposed to be a Hulk. And then we get the first Shadowhawk drawing. Note the difference in the shoulder blades of the armor. Yeah? Well, there's... Yeah? There's a little notch. That is certainly noteworthy. Okay. This doesn't look bad. This is better than a lot of stuff in the comic, to be honest. Like, I feel like this comic should have been black and white. That might have helped. Oh. And unfortunately, it'll be a while until we see Whilst do some comics, though that's not his fault. And this is the big, who is Shadowhawk? Is it this guy? Or perhaps this guy? Do you care? No, Jim. Sorry. So that's Shadowhawk, and Shadowhawk seems to be kind of important to Valentino. He keeps pushing it. Let me see here. There's a few attempts at putting out a Shadowhawk series. So there's this one, 92. And this goes for like 18 issues somehow. I don't know how. He's got wealthy buddies. I guess that's that. Then there's Shadowhawk 2 next year, and followed by Shadowhawk 3, also in 93. That was always a little weird. But Shadowhawk 2, we found out who Shadowhawk was. It's that guy, remember? And then there's a fourth series in two... What? There's like one-shots and shit. Yeah. There's a fourth series in 2005. There's another little run after the Image United abortion. And it looks like he put out a single issue in 2022? Is it? 2022. There we go. That's how you say that. I shouldn't read stuff directly, I don't think. That doesn't work too well. Like, he still puts out Shadowhawk stuff for some reason. So he likes it. It looks like there's maybe like 35 issues total. Because he keeps putting out these like 3 and 4 and 6 issue stints. And then they don't sell because his style looks like ass. Anyway. So after Shadowhawk 3, I guess, and maybe after a couple of the one-shots, um, Jim took over as the publisher for Image. Because I guess they were getting kind of stagnant. None of the original, none of the original creators, except for Eric Larson, were still working on their shit. And so, if you don't have those awesome artists anymore, why are people still buying Image Comics? Is it because the stories are so good? No, I don't think so. Is it because they're bringing up new artists that are just as good? A little bit, but not enough to float a company. J. Scott Campbell was coming up, and Joe Mad had Battle Chasers, and I want to say Quesada was doing Ash for, I don't know, an issue or two. So there is a little bit, but again, not enough to keep a company going. So what Valentino did was it seems like he let just about anybody have a comic for a little while there, and it's kind of his reign is poo-pooed a fair bit as not being the most successful, but it did diversify the kind of stuff that Image put out, and it kind of gave them their two probably heaviest hitters since the Image guys, which would have been Walking Dead, you may have heard of, and Invincible, which are both the same guy, I think, Robert Kirkman, right? Probably. I never read Invincible. I did read Walking Dead. And Walking Dead, that worked out. And eventually kind of situated them, I guess, closer to where they are these days. I guess Eric Larson took over from there. But, I mean, these days, Image is weirdly like what they set out to be. I don't know. It's because having stopped collecting Image comics in 90, I don't even know, 95. I was certainly done by 95. It seemed like they were just gonna keep producing crappy knockoffs of the founders. And then I just kind of got back into collecting comics a couple of years ago, and Image is they're still doing the creator-owned thing, and they're putting out everything they do seems to get nominated, or at least all the shit that gets nominated for Eisners and shit seems to come out of Image. And it's what the fuck happened? They're actually the quasi-independent, creator-friendly company that they intended to be, which I did not see coming. I think a bit of that has to do with Valentino, honestly. Not Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk didn't help anything. Shadowhawk kind of sucked. But Val's okay. So yeah, that'll do it for this one. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications. Please follow me on Twitter at Team Bloodforce, and subscribe on Patreon. That's where I dump all of my original pages, as well as process drawings and sketch crap, and these kind of videos here, and one or two other kinds of videos. And most of all,